Hello, everyone, and welcome to another installment of TEDXcellence, a place of learning, exploration, and revelation. And I come to you live from my Corona bunker on the moon with Dogcat Fox, a Pepperjack, and all of you. Hello, everyone. Welcome to Saturday, Succulent Saturday. Yes. That's the word I chose today. Before the stream, thank you, Point Curation. We're having a BYOB party, and I brought Just Ice. Yes, the Just Ice League. That's what we are. And who are we today? Well, we are Mr. Scott J87, hello. Functional, hello. Aloysius Fudpucker, hello. Raziel, hello. Keenan, hello. Maniac Man 2030, hello. Jaeger Pony, hello. Point Curation, of course, hello. Keeverdam, hello. That One Servant of Satania, hello. Eric Grunstadter, hello. Black Belt for Christ, hello. Saniko, hello. Old Guy Gamer, hello. Zalbla, hello. Atheist Icon, hello. K Shull, hello. Jordan 250, hello. The Gayest Person on YouTube, hello. No One Nowhere, hello. Lurking Gopher, hello. Runt. Hello. Adam Mangold, hello. Michael Garrick, hello. Ginger Snap, hello. Asian Hippie, hello. Ooh, so many hellos. And the Gayest Person on YouTube, thank you for the Dogcat Fox. The We're Number One. We're Number One. Havoc Vladimir Stalinov, hello. The Pissed Off Shih Tzu, hello. Toxic Nightshade, thank you so much. Hello. And hi, Scribe and chat. Hello. Hello. Hello, hello, hello. What a wonderful word. Hello. Aspianti, hello. Check Your Logic, hello. Check Your Logic asks, isn't that Chaz? Do you mean a world without prisons? Well, you may be correct, because that is the subject of today's TEDx talk. Now, truth be told, many moons ago, I did a TEDXcellence, not a live one, but a scripted one, that dealt with the same kind of subject matter. In that instance, the speaker provided an alternative of restorative justice centers, like actual community centers that acted as replacements for prisons. Sort of. Yeah, it was an interesting one. I think it's one of my more interesting TEDx's back in the day. But I have no idea where we're going with this one. This is much more recent. It was posted about 9 months ago, thereabouts, and I am very curious to find out what the argument in this instance is. Thank you. This is Kyle. Hello, chat people and scribbles. Well, hello, Kyle. The Luke Skywalker, too. Hello. And Jordan Edwardson, hello. All right, guys, so have your bingo cards ready. Link to the bingo card image is in the description. Thanks once more to Frosted Glass for that. Also, something that I constantly forget to mention, but I just now remembered to mention. If you do share the stream on Twitter, please be sure to tag me in that tweet so that I know that you shared it and I can thank you directly, because I like doing that. Also know that if you tag me in the tweet with my @scribe_light thing, you have to put at least a period or something before that. Otherwise, only I see it, is how I understand Twitter. If that understanding is boomer territory, well, forgive me. I'm still learning. And thank you, Jordan Edwardson, for the Dogcat Fox. How's it going? Well, so far it goes okay. After we start this talk, I don't know where we'll be. But as usual, guys, I'm going to start off with a couple of seconds for sound test. You guys tell me if you can hear it, and then we will proceed. And here we go.
A world without prisons.
Yes, a world without prisons. I'm going to make a drinking game out of that phrase. All right, a world without prisons. Lay it on me.
I want to ask you to take a moment to imagine that world.
Okay, I'm imagining that world. Chaz comes to mind. Ferguson comes to mind. Minneapolis comes to mind. Baltimore comes to mind. Yeah, a world without prisons. Okay, I got it. I'm visualizing it now.
or a few moments?
Okay, it was a few moments. I took time to talk. I don't know if this is gratuitous pausing for effect because she's giving people time. This is structured, so I'm not gonna do it quite yet. Yeah, we'll keep waiting. If you go any longer, I'm going to go for gratuitous pausing for effect.
How does this world make you feel?
Frightened.
Do you feel a bit scared?
Yes.
Do you feel intrigued?
No.
What exists in place of prisons in this world?
What exists in place of prisons in this world? In place of? I don't know.
Can you imagine anything that exists in their place?
Well, given that prisons are a very specific thing serving a very specific function, to imagine something that replaces them and serves the same purpose, no, I'll need some help with that one. Okay, gratuitous pausing for effect. I don't care now. All right, gratuitous pausing for effect and free space are circled on the bingo card. And we proceed. Good God, lady. Really? Come on.
In our world, Aotearoa, New Zealand, 2019, we have one of the highest prison population rates in the OECD.
Really? I had no idea. I thought I don't know. My images of New Zealand are all sort of like Lord of the Rings and Hobbit holes and things. So, yeah, anyway.
A big part of the reason for this is that we incarcerate Māori at a rate almost 6 times that of Pākehā.
Okay, I'm not familiar with those terms. I don't know what... Did she say Marty? Pākehā? I don't know what that is. Can somebody clarify that for me in the chat so I can edify myself as well as the audience, because I really don't know. Indigenous people, says Kiever Dam. The Maoris, says Thomas Cleaver. Okay. So she's saying that they imprison the indigenous people more than the non-indigenous people. Is that how I'm supposed to understand that? Okay, gotcha. No one Norse versus Anglo. Okay, I don't know these terms, but okay, I understand.
Māori men make up 53% of our prison population, and Māori women 63%.
Okay.
Māori are also more likely to be charged and imprisoned than Pākehā for any crime.
Okay. Is that a fault of the system, or is that a fault of culture or economics? Tell me.
It's hard to avoid the conclusion that our justice system is profoundly and systematically racist.
Yeah, well, if you go by the God of the Gaps theory of statistical analysis, then sure it is. But systemic has been said. All right. Let's see. Let's see. Leaves out vital context. I'm gonna hold that one in suspense. Maybe she'll get to some kind of statistics or facts or information later on. But when she comes out and says, here's a statistical disparity, obviously the cause is racist. Right. There's only one reason that could happen. Thank you, Bikala Driving 8-Man. A red thumbs up. Da Tovarish.
Now, there are probably as many ideas about what Aotearoa New Zealand represents in this room as there are people.
I have no idea what that meant. I don't speak New Zealand.
But I doubt that any of us feel proud that we represent a country more prone to locking people up than anyone else in the OECD except United States, Turkey, and Israel.
Well, are they all innocent of crimes or something? Why should we feel embarrassed about that? Why is the propensity of other people, some relatively small portion of the population, to commit crimes, why is that something I should be ashamed of? I'm not quite following that logic. I've never really followed that logic in other arguments as well. So.
Now, by virtue of being in this room, I think you're the kind of people who are interested in new ideas and new ways of thinking.
You are correct. I really am. I'm not being facetious when I say that. I really am watching these things, perhaps futilely, to seek out new ideas and new information, to explore strange new arguments, to seek out new solutions and new civilizations, to boldly go where only I choose to for some God knows why reason.
What's really interesting is that even amongst people who might have the most invested in our current punitive justice system, there's already this growing awareness that prisons are not the solution to our social problems.
Prisons are not the solution to our social problems? Sorry, I cut her off just before then. I want to back up slightly, make sure I didn't mishear her.
Okay. What's really interesting is that even amongst people who might have the most invested in our current punitive justice system,
yes,
there's already this growing awareness that prisons are not the solution to our social problems.
Prisons aren't the solutions to social problems. You're correct. They are the destination for those convicted of crimes. I don't see how... I mean, I don't know how New Zealand works. Maybe you have a social problem, and instead of putting someone through due process or, you know, some kind of criminal justice system, you just throw them into a prison to avoid the social problem. I mean, like I say, New Zealand is a completely different world. Middle Earth or something.
In August of last year, I was one of 600 people attending the government's Criminal Justice Summit down the road in Porirua, New Zealand.
Ooh, how exclusive. One of 600.
I was there in my capacity as the director of Just Speak, the organization that I work for.
The director of Just Speak. Just Speak? Okay. I'm guessing it's a justice advocacy, alternative criminal justice type thing. I'm guessing.
It was not a gathering of radical prison abolitionists.
And yet, what's the name of your talk again?
Many of the people there work in the justice system as lawyers, prosecutors, corrections staff, police officers. Many people who've been victims of crime were also represented, as well as those who support them through the system.
Okay, so taking your word for it, a broad spectrum representation of people from across the criminal justice system and those who have been subject to it, let's say, as victims of crime. Got it.
But on the second day, this insane thing happened. We were asked to imagine what the front page of the newspaper would say in the year 2040, when we had achieved all the change that we had desired for our criminal justice system.
Okay, well, I don't know what all the change you desired is, so I can only imagine. Or you imagined for me, and now you will tell me.
When we had made it safe and effective for everyone, what would that look like?
If you made the criminal justice safe and effective for everyone. I hate to tell you this. I know it might be sort of a downer revelation. No system is perfect. No system is perfect. So no matter what you do, no matter how hard you try, there will always be failings in any system you try to set up. So even if you had everything that you wanted, everything that you asked for, it wouldn't be safe for everyone. It wouldn't be fair for everyone. Not everyone would be happy. I know. I'm a downer. I'm a rain cloud, but I'm just being realistic.
We were broken up into different groups representing all the diverse people who were at this conference. And one by one, people representing these groups got up on stage.
Uh-huh.
And one by one, they unfolded the front page of this newspaper in 2040.
Oh, so you guys did a little art project on the second day. Oh, sounds cute.
And on nearly every single one, it said some version of January the 1st, 2040.
Yes.
The last prison in Aotearoa closes.
Wow. And this wasn't a gathering of prison abolitionists, you say? Got it.
They celebrated a world without prisons.
Uh-huh.
What did that look like to you?
Chaos.
See, to me, it feels like it would look like we'd build a community where we didn't respond to harm by creating more harm.
Whoa, 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 whoa. You didn't respond to harm by creating more harm. And so, and I know I haven't gotten to the details yet because, well, we're only 3 minutes into this thing. How is not, let's just say, portioning off those who cause harm away from those who don't, how is that not increasing harm and or the chances of further harm after the first harm? What is not locking away the serial rapist going to do to decrease harm?
But instead, we modeled the behavior that we want to see.
You modeled the behavior you want to see. Please explain.
Instead of asking why anyone should be locked up or go free, we've asked ourselves, what would transform the conditions in which we know that harm is most likely to occur?
Transform the conditions under which we know harm is most likely to occur. Are you asking someone what she was wearing that night?
Why, as a society, would we choose to model cruelty and vengeance when we are capable of so much more?
Because we as human beings are capable of cruelty and vengeance. The lowest common denominator among us is always going to be there. That's why we have laws. Laws are an acknowledgement of our failings as human beings and our desire to be better than our baser instincts. Okay.
Because the truth is that as a society, prisons are not a place that we should want to exist.
You're right. In a perfect world, in a dreamlike utopia, there would be no such thing as prisons because there would be no such thing as crime. People would not harm one another unjustly. No people would take advantage of one another, and so on and so on. However, I bring you back to the concept and the necessity and the overall meaning of laws.
Let me draw you a parallel.
Okay.
Let's say that I've come up with a radical solution to deal with cancer, the greatest healthcare challenge of them all.
Okay, you've come up with a solution to cancer. Proceed.
It's necessary, I say to you, to take radical action to eliminate the scourge for once and for all.
Okay, radical action to eliminate cancer. All right.
But then you find out that this radical solution I'm proposing,
Yeah.
it won't actually cure anyone.
Oh.
It'll make a whole bunch of people more sick.
Uh-huh.
And it will cost us billions of dollars, significantly more than the alternatives.
Okay, so if you came to me and said you had a radical solution for eliminating crime, and you told me you had this wonderful solution, but the problem is it wouldn't actually solve crime, and ultimately it would result in far more damage, far more cost than if we did nothing. Sort of like taking away prisons, letting criminals commit crimes, having nothing to disincentivize such behavior or prevent such individuals from causing more behavior or more damage. Wait, am I not seeing this the way you meant it to be seen?
The truth is that investing in prisons, we're investing in a system like this.
We are? Okay. How?
One that's proven to increase crime, increase reoffending, create trauma for communities and families, and cost us billions and billions of dollars.
Right. Okay. You're going to cite some studies or some kind of comparisons or some kind of models or something to show this to be true, that the presence of prisons actually increases crime. And okay, I'm waiting.
As Professor Tracy McIntosh would say, prisons are fully funded failure.
Oh, okay. As one professor said. Well, obviously it must be true.
Now, many of us might struggle with what kind of alternative we would build.
Yes, well, I'm struggling with that right now. But you see, here's the thing. I shouldn't be the one struggling with that because purportedly you have the answer. I mean, otherwise you're just complaining into the wind. So you and your organization and all of your peer groups and conferences, you have a ready-made answer to replace prisons. Correct?
But the truth is that incarceration is best understood as a solution to social problems and social inequalities that the rest of our health and education and social services have failed to address.
So serial rapists are a social problem. Okay. Okay.
In 2016, the Department of Corrections' own research found that 91% of people in our prisons have had a mental health or addiction disorder.
Wow. Can you imagine, given admittedly how low a bar some mental disorders have to jump these days to be diagnosed as present in a person? I mean, I know I have an anxiety disorder, but here's the thing. I'm not a criminal. So
people in our prisons in Aotearoa are twice as likely to have thought about suicide and 4 times as likely to have attempted it.
Okay. And
75% of women in our prisons have experienced sexual or family violence.
Okay. And this, what, justifies their crimes? I'm not making the connection here.
And 63% of people in prison, a rate that's almost as high as 90% for Māori, have experienced a traumatic brain injury, the consequences of which are known to have severe knock-on effects for impulse control, decision-making, as well as creating serious mental and physical trauma.
And so when you have someone who has no self-control over their actions, and this lack of self-control leads to harming others in some way, shape, or form, your solution is not a prison or some kind of, I don't know, institution or facility to keep them separated from the rest of society because they have no control over themselves. Sorry, what was your alternative again to that scenario?
Now, I think we can all agree that when a harm is committed, there should be consequences and a process of accountability.
Yes.
But we can probably also agree that we would want that process of accountability to be effective, right? To prevent future harm.
Ideally, yes.
problem with our punitive system that's centered around prisons is that they fail to deter crime.
Entirely? Like completely? The recidivism rate is 100%? I don't know. I mean, I kind of need her to tell me because I don't know New Zealand all that well.
Moreover, once someone is sentenced to prison in Aotearoa, it does not only fail to decrease the chances of them reoffending, in many cases it will increase it.
Uh-huh. Okay. Well, what is your alternative?
Now, one other thing we can probably agree on is that when the justice system does intervene in someone's life, it should do what it can to address the drivers of their offending, right?
No. No, it is not the criminal justice system's responsibility to take responsibility for someone's own personal responsibility. The criminal justice system cannot solve the core drivers of someone leading up to them committing an offense. I mean, if the person in question takes it upon themselves to seek therapy or help, either before or, unfortunately, after they commit an offense or something else, that's on them. The state can offer alternatives to prison, certainly, like rehabilitation, counseling, anger management classes. It depends on the circumstances. But ultimately, it comes down to the personal responsibility of the individual to seek an alternative to their own choices. So maybe I misunderstood what she's saying here, but that's my reflexive response.
Again, to prevent more harm. Particularly if we understand, as we do, that lots of harm is driven by social issues around mental health and addiction.
Okay. I won't argue that having I don't know, some kind of social system set up to try to identify and help with mental illness and or addiction, I'm not going to argue that that's inherently a bad idea in some way, shape, or form. Okay. And if that ultimately helps prevent crime or death or anything else, of course, no problem there. You know, rehabilitation centers, mental health resources and on. As an idea, I don't have an argument. As a replacement for prisons in total, well, I'm not even sure if that's what she's suggesting. But then I don't know what she's suggesting. So help me out here, lady.
But community-based programs are significantly more effective at addressing those causes of harm. And the rehabilitation programs that are offered in prison, any good that they are do is often profoundly undermined by the overcrowding and the trauma and the violence that are really common experiences for many people in our prisons.
And if you can hear in the background, as is almost constant in my part of the world, apparently, sirens, as the criminal justice system of one form or another rolls on in the real world. The real world, where I'm not entirely sure our speaker is living in, because we are nearly halfway through her talk, and as of yet, I haven't heard what the alternative to prisons is.
For vulnerable young people, our justice system sets up these patterns really early on in their lives.
Oh, won't somebody please think of the children? Are we going to go school to prison pipeline or the New Zealand equivalent here?
90% of young people who come before the youth court for a serious harm have been at some point have had a care and protection record. So at some point in time, someone has raised a really serious concern about violence or neglect for them or their family.
Right. Okay. And the parents are where in this equation?
And children with a parent in prison are 8 to 10 times more likely to go to prison themselves.
Well, I'm not going to deny that bad parenting leads to misbehaving children. It's true. But here's the thing. It comes down to personal choice. Children of imprisoned parents do not have to become criminals. They can choose not to.
When you zoom out on the system and look at it from above, it's kind of as if we've set up some of the most vulnerable people in our society to fail.
Oh, so they're not responsible for their own actions now. Okay. Are we going to get to the solution to prisons at some point? I have a feeling I'm going to keep asking that same question over and over again as we proceed.
And then we've continued to punish them when they do.
Right.
I think one of the hardest things about imagining an alternative system,
Yeah.
about building an alternative system,
Yeah.
is imagining it.
Yeah, it is kind of hard to imagine it, given that you haven't shown us any reason to imagine an alternative. What we have isn't perfect. And
What filled the place of prisons in your imagination?
nothing. Because prisons serve a very specific function: isolating criminals from the rest of society to protect society from people who are inclined to commit crimes. If you're not going to do that, I'm not sure what the alternative to that is while achieving the same result. Which is why you need to tell me, because you've been thinking about this a lot more than I have.
When you thought about it before.
Yeah, okay.
What's really interesting in Aotearoa New Zealand is that we don't have to look that far back into our history to see examples of what these alternatives might look like.
Oh, okay. So New Zealand has a history of not having prisons then, or having an alternative there too. All right. Do edify me.
Prior to colonization, processes of accountability when harm occurred were incredibly important to Maori communities.
Okay.
But prisons were an alien concept.
Okay, so are we going to get to the restorative justice suggestions now? I'm going to take a moment to look over the bingo card, make sure I haven't missed something. Plays victim. Herself, no. But on the part of others, yes. So I'm going to circle that one. Feminism, no. School to prison pipeline. Well, she didn't say it exactly, but she came very close. So I'm going to hold out on that one for the moment. Childhood or family anecdote, no. Microaggression, no. Takes credit for something, no. Attempt to coin a new buzzword, no, not that I can tell. Equity, no. Rape culture, no. Toxic, no. Anecdote that probably never happened. I don't think she's brought up an anecdote yet. Leaves out vital context. Again, I'm going to wait until the end of the show until I circle that one, because maybe she'll come up with something. Speaker should not be in the current occupation or position. I don't know what her occupation or position is, aside from being director of an organization that I assume is working to get rid of prisons. So in that regard, she's doing her job. Marginalized, marginalization. I don't think she said that. White supremacy, privilege, no. Make something about race, sex, etc. for no reason. Not for no reason. Certainly not yet for a justifiable reason, but that's beside the point. Wage gap, no. Patriarchy, no. Benevolent condescension. Well, she's kind of saying that there are people that are just more inclined to commit crimes, and they are thus victims because the system is... Yeah, I'm going to do benevolent condescension. Word salad. Not yet, but maybe in the aggregate by the end of it, a list. She hasn't given us a list. Cultural appropriation, not that I can tell. All right, so that's my review about midway through the talk. I will take, of course, chat, your recommendations or arguments back and forth by the time we get to the end of this after we're done. So keep tabs on things, and if I miss something or you think I should circle something I haven't, I'll talk to you then.
People who committed harm were dealt with by the community that they belonged to and the communities that they affected with input from everyone involved.
So if someone committed a crime within the local community, the community would come together and decide justice all on their own, would they? Gosh, that sounds like, what do you call it? Frontier justice? Vigilantism? Is that your alternative to prisons?
As constitutional lawyer Matua Moana Jackson puts it, the goal of the law was to restore whakapapa in its broadest sense of an interrelationship between peoples and between people and their environment.
No, at least not in my opinion. The law, as I said, is an admission of the failings of human nature. The law is a concession to the fact that we as human beings are flawed, and they are a promise to ourselves as a society and a civilization that from that point onward, once a law is established, we will work forward to be better and to hold ourselves accountable to better ideals than we did previously. Now, does that have something to do with finding balance and equilibrium and justice from something that was not previously an offense or someone who was not previously a victim to someone who is, etc.? Sure, it does come to terms with the sins of the past. It doesn't inherently resolve them, but yeah, it is a way of healing or at least working towards a better society. Again, that's just my sort of interpretation of it.
And reconciliation was the logical conclusion of that process.
Reconciliation. All right. Tell me how the reconciliation process works between a serial rapist and their victims. Please. I haven't heard it yet. I would love to hear it for once.
It's a process that puts meaningful accountability, being accountable to the people who matter the most to you, and the restoration of relationships front and center.
What relationship is to be restored between a rapist and their victim? Please tell me.
What's interesting about our current colonial system is that the restoration relationships and the ability to heal from harm that you've experienced or caused fall to the bottom of the priority list.
Whoa, whoa, whoa. Heal from the harm you've caused. What? I'm sorry. What? I'm going to back up a bit to make sure I didn't just mishear her.
Accountability, being accountable to the people who matter the most to you, and the restoration of relationships front and center.
Yeah, right. Okay.
What's interesting about our current colonial system is that the restoration relationships and the ability to heal from harm that you've experienced or caused.
Heal from harm that you've caused. I would love to hear some more on that one. I have a feeling we're not going to get it.
Fall to the bottom of the priority list because punishment comes first.
Punishment comes first. Instead of restoring relationships between a murderer and the victim's family, or a rapist and their victim, or a fraudster and the person whose financial history and future they've destroyed. Yeah, how could Bernie Madoff heal from the harm he's caused? That is really a question I should ask myself. God, Mark Dreyer. Mark Dreyer, who, all he did was sort of like, he pillaged, sort of like venture capitalist funds and things. I mean, I guess he didn't hurt anybody, really. I mean, they're just a bunch of rich people to begin with. How does he heal from the harm he's caused? I don't know. That's an interesting philosophical question there.
No one benefits from this system. Not victims of crime, not people who commit harm, or not, as we've discussed, the many people who fall into that gray zone between those two groups.
Why should people who commit harm benefit from the system? Is that such a dumb question? Why should people who commit harm upon others benefit from a system of punishment? I've really, really lost the through line here, because she keeps talking about the criminals as though they are victims themselves because they victimized others. Okay.
And Māori, whose rights, whose land, and whose processes of accountability were completely torn apart by colonization, are the most affected as victims, not just as people overrepresented in our prisons.
So if I'm remembering correctly here, the indigenous people of New Zealand should not be subject to the laws of New Zealand. If they commit crimes, it should be handled by their communities. Is that what you're suggesting? I'm still waiting for the alternative to prisons. What is the alternative to prisons? You're complaining about the injustice of prisons, the cruelty of prisons, the lack of effectiveness of prisons. It's like, okay, all right, you know what? For the sake of argument, all right, prisons aren't perfect. What is the alternative?
So to me, it makes profound sense to look back at these processes of accountability and restoration to understand how we might start to fix our broken system.
Okay, so you're going to look to pre-colonization justice practices in a time before a criminal justice system, due process. Again, I don't know New Zealand law specifically, but I'm going to assume there is the presumption of innocence prior to the conviction of guilt and so on. So you're going to look back to a time before that for answers on how to handle crime today and how that is going to replace prisons. All right. What replaces prisons?
Now, for sure, our current society is really different from pre-colonial Māori communities in some really important and distinct ways.
Uh-huh. Do I sense a but coming?
But what's interesting...
What's interesting?
Is that there are already these amazing examples in our justice system. We are already approaching this idea of, when we intervene, do no further harm.
Do no further harm. To whom?
Our youth justice system is based on restorative justice principles.
Restorative justice? If only that was on the bingo card, but it isn't.
And one of its major priorities is deterring young people from entering into the adult criminal justice system at all.
Yes, and when you're talking about children or minors, those who have not yet fully developed into adults who are legally responsible for their actions in total, a restorative system can be a reasonable alternative because they are still learning. They're still in their formative years. There's still a chance to set them on a different path of behavior and thinking before they cross that legal threshold and become responsible for themselves and their actions in total. So, yes, a kiss and make up or a scared straight or, whatever, that kind of process, I don't disagree with if it's being applied, depending on the circumstances, of course, to youth offenders. So on that score, I'm not entirely in disagreement with the speaker. However, once you become a full-fledged legal adult where you're responsible in total for your actions, decisions, etc., sorry, you had your chance in the 18 or 21 years previous to get yourself on the right track. After that, it's all on you. And it's no one else's responsibility to take responsibility for your choices.
It's been so successful in this that it has decreased the number of young people offending by between 1/2 and 2/3 over the past decade.
And I am very glad to hear that, if that is an accurate assessment. Great. Excellent. By the time they became full-fledged adults, they had changed their ways. Good.
When a young person does commit a crime and they come before the court, they often referred to what's called a family group conference, a restorative justice process where the young person who is offended, their whānau and their family, members of their community, social workers, and the victim of their crime come together for a facilitated discussion about how that person can repair the harm that they've caused and what they need to not reoffend again.
Sure. And again, when it comes to youthful offenders or offenders who are still in their formative years, and also depending on the crime committed, because that is important, doesn't seem to be important to anybody who talks about a world without prisons or restorative justice practices, but it is important. Again, I don't inherently have a problem with that. But again, once they become an adult, a legal adult, an independent adult, there are very few safety nets left or excuses left to be made. So she's not describing a replacement for prisons.
Some of the people who benefit the most from this restorative justice process are victims. They report a substantially higher satisfaction rate with this process than they do with the adversarial and punitive model that is a central part of our adult justice system.
Based on what crimes? It kind of reminds me of the whole, when I hear the argument of, oh, this demographic has far more bachelor degrees than this demographic. Why aren't they succeeding as well? And I always ask, bachelor's degrees in what subjects? All right. Victims find more satisfaction from this process. Okay. Victims of what sorts of crimes? And how does that translate over into the adult criminal justice system? And how does that then replace prisons?
It's not all doom and gloom. There are some really good examples in our adult justice system. We are trying to apply these same ideas.
By all means, tell me of the examples in the adult criminal justice system that show that we do not need prisons anymore.
Te Ao Oranga in Northland is an initiative that lets the police and healthcare agencies, along with NGOs, work together to help people who are suffering from methamphetamine addictions or who's supplying it.
So, drug rehab. Wow, there's a new concept.
They refer people to the health agencies instead of to the courts so that they can get the help that they need to kick their habit.
Okay, diversionary drug rehabilitation programs are not new. They're not that novel. I'm not against them, but that's nothing new, and that is not an alternative to prison. I mean, it's an alternative to sending someone to prison, but that does not eliminate prisons.
In its first year, it's been so successful that 120 people who weren't previously known to health agencies have now made contact with them and are getting help.
120 people. Okay, now I missed what city or jurisdiction she mentioned this was taking place in. So I don't know what the aggregate population of that territory is, or how 120 drug offenders stands up next to all the other drug offenders. All the same, 120 people sounds like a rounding error on most statistical analysis. So I'm glad for the individuals who got help and found an alternative to being incarcerated, certainly. But that doesn't sound like an alternative to anything. You look very proud of yourself. And, you know, for the sake of those 120 people, okay, legit. They're all individual people with individual lives, and their lives affect so many other people. I get it. It's 120 people.
Auckland's alcohol and other drug courts allows people whose offending is driven by their addiction to be referred to a community-based drug rehabilitation provider instead of prison.
Yes, again, diversionary drug or alcohol or substance rehabilitation programs as an alternative to being sentenced to prison are not new. And I don't have any problem with them inherently. I think most reasonable people wouldn't have a problem with them inherently. But that is not a replacement for prisons. That is an alternative to sending someone to prison. When are we going to get to the thing that's supposed to replace prisons?
So if we can acknowledge that these alternatives exist and that they work.
Yeah, they're alternatives. They can work. I've seen look, and I know anecdotal is anecdotal. I've seen several documentaries regarding diversionary programs such as that, where they follow specific individuals through the process. You know, they'll pick like 6 people who are hooked on heroin in Los Angeles or something, right? And they'll follow their experiences as they get arrested. They go through rehab, the diversionary programs. And you know what? Half of them succeed. The other half don't, because either the addiction has got them or they weren't being honest when they said they would do the work or whatever. If you're going to tell me that it's 100% effective, I won't believe you. If you tell me they're 100% ineffective, I won't believe you. Because no system is perfect. And it's still not a replacement for prison.
I can feel us all asking, like, what's the holdup?
What's the holdup? Well, the programs exist already. There's no holdup. They're there. And the judges have the discretion to put someone on that path as an alternative to prison. What do you mean, what's the holdup? You just told us these programs exist.
And a big part of it is us.
What are you talking about? Okay, I'm backing up because maybe I missed something. I don't want to proceed under a misapprehension. Maybe I missed something. Maybe she said something. Let's take this from the top, okay?
Auckland's alcohol and other drug courts allows people whose offending is driven by their addiction to be referred to a community-based drug rehabilitation provider instead of prison. So if we can acknowledge that these alternatives exist.
I can acknowledge that these alternatives exist, yes.
And that they work.
I acknowledge that they can work, yes.
I can feel us all asking, like, what's the holdup?
What is the holdup to what? They exist. They can work if the person puts the work in. What's the holdup for what? Just having them all over the place? Oh, okay. I mean, if you're trying to say every jurisdiction should have such a diversionary program. I mean, in spirit, I wouldn't necessarily disagree, I suppose, but what does that have to do with eliminating prisons? I mean, okay, hold on. If it's a diversionary program, if it's an alternative to sending someone to prison, then if you don't have prison there as the disincentive from violating the terms of the diversion, what's the point of having the diversion? Carrot and stick. What am I missing here? Mr. Scott J87, thank you so much. Press 1 for Mad Max. Press 2 for Judge Dredd World. I'm really missing something here.
And a big part of it is us.
Okay, I'm circling leaves out vital context. She's made absolutely no sense there. And honestly, I'm circling word salad as well, because none of that was that amount of confusion on my part can't be ignored. Not to say I'm some genius or something, but I was listening intently here.
Public attitudes are perceived as, or may in fact be, a huge barrier to change in our criminal justice system.
Public perceptions. Okay, please explain.
Many of us have never entered a courtroom, let alone a prison cell, but we have inherited really fixed ideas about what works to prevent crime and what accountability looks like.
Okay, I suppose.
And a lot of these ideas are understandably based on fear, that we have for ourselves and our loved ones.
Yeah, I suppose.
But what's interesting is that it feels like those of us who have are least likely to experience crime have the most fear and think that crime is on the rise when it's actually decreasing.
It feels like that, you say. Got it.
In Aotearoa, the people least likely to experience crime are Pākehā, wealthy, and older.
Okay, and you say those adjectives with such, I don't know, condescension or depression or something? I don't know.
And what's really interesting is that it seems like the more that we invest in the kind of punitive justice policies that have led us to have this record high prison population.
Wait, we have a record high prison population, but you say that crime is going down. Crime is going down, but there's a record high prison population. Okay.
Is that they seem to make us more scared. If we compare ourselves to
seem to make us more scared. Who's us again?
Is that they seem to make us more scared.
Yeah, seem to make us more scared. Seem feels like, okay.
If we compare ourselves to Finland, who has a similar population size and a similar crime rate, which is low.
The crime rate is low. The incarceration rate is high.
But a prison population that is the quarter the size of ours.
A quarter the size of yours. Okay, so you're going to tell us about the Finland model that doesn't include prisons, right? Thank you, Corey Suzuki. Obviously, crime is going down, Scribe. All the offenders are in jail. The crime is going down, Scribe. All the offenders are in jail. I mean, you might think that's the conclusion, Corey, but that's obviously not what she's trying to tell us. Okay.
When surveyed, New Zealanders are a lot more scared than Finns.
New Zealanders are a lot more scared than Finns. So it is simply on the basis of the fear of the population that is putting more people in prison. It's not that people are committing crimes. It's not that there's any reasonable sense of threat by someone who harms another person that they need to be punished in some way. It's just fear. It's just an irrational reaction on the basis of the population. Okay. If you say so, I guess.
More scared, not less.
Yeah, no, I got that from the fact that you said they were more scared than Finland. I don't know why you said more scared, not less. I don't get that. Or unless you're trying to point out like, well, we have more people in prison, but we're more scared. And the crime rate is dropping. So I'm confused.
And we have to acknowledge that politicians have routinely manipulated this fear that we feel for their own political gain, but for our community's loss.
And you're not trying to manipulate people's, I don't know, guilt or shame, as you brought up earlier, or anything else to lead them towards some sort of legislative end or social change that you deem necessary, even though to this point and after all this time, you haven't actually told us what would replace prisons.
This fear that we feel for their own political gain,
but
for our community's loss, and for the profound loss of people with first-hand interaction of these failed systems.
First-hand interaction of these failed systems? Are you talking about the criminals? I'm sorry. Am I supposed to feel an equal amount of sympathy for the criminals as I do the victims? Because throughout this entire talk, you have talked about the criminals and the victims as though they exist on equitable planes of existence or something. It just, I don't understand that. That doesn't make any sense. You're not making any sense.
So if we're going to start building this world that we...
No. We're not going to start building a world until you give us the floor plan. I've been waiting this entire time for the floor plan. What is the alternative to prisons?
So if we're going to start building this world that we have all imagined today, this world without prisons...
No. We have not all imagined the same world. We have not. I've imagined a world that is not desirable. And you have not yet put into my mind an image of anything as an alternative.
One of the first things I think we need to start reimagining is ourselves. What we fear and who we fear and why.
I fear thieves. I fear rapists. I fear murderers because they will take what is mine unjustly, because they will sexually assault either me or someone that I care about, that they will take the life of myself or someone else that I care about. Those are the kinds of people that I fear. Those are the kinds of people that do not deserve to live amongst the rest of society if they are going to prey on the rest of society. So please do tell me, what is the alternative to prison for just career thieves, serial rapists, and murderers? Because if you do not have an answer for the worst possible dredges of human behavior when it comes to criminal justice, I don't know that you have an answer to anything.
I often think about those 600 people in that conference in Porirua.
Why? Because they all ended up coming to a conclusion that you agree with? Is that why? It makes you feel good? That you're not alone, or that you feel like you have a majority opinion on things? I'm not a psychologist, but I do own a couch.
No one walked into the room that day thinking that they were going to set out a plan to abolish prisons.
What plan? What plan? I could take a blank piece of paper and I could draw up a fake headline from a fake date in the future of anything. Is that a plan? You haven't outlined a plan. What's the plan?
And that moment when we talked about what kind of world we'd be proud of in 2040, it felt like this blip, this moment of clarity amongst what was mostly a discussion about the hurt and the anger and frustration that we felt about our current failed system.
So it was not a rational step of procedures and changes necessary to achieve the goal you wanted. It was an emotional, instantaneous gratification response. Is that a plan?
It felt like a blip, but actually I think those 600 people were just the beginning. Thank you.
What? What? No, 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 no. No, no, no. Come on. You are insulting the intelligence of every single person in that room. Never mind me in the abstract watching this from a far distant future from when this took place. You are insulting the intelligence of every single one in that room. And look at them. They are happy. Except for this guy. No, wait, no, he's clapping too. I thought there was a guy with his hand in his on his face. And he's just kind of like, what the hell? But no, I was mistaken. Everybody is clapping. Everybody. No, wait, this guy. See this guy right here with his arms folded? Oh, whoops, let's start it over again. Here, let's go back to that guy. Oh, no, he clapped too. Ah, man, I thought there was at least one reasonable person in the audience. That is absolute horse hockey. That entire thing was nonsense. Incoherent nonsense. Damn it. I mean, I was really hoping that she would spell out the alternative. At least the last lady, the lady that did the TEDx talk I did a long time ago, she at least described what would replace prisons in very, very specific, tactile details. She talked about like roving restorative justice campers and things. Like you'd have this mobile home that was outfitted with I don't know, counseling things, going from place to place in a community to help heal the damage or heal the pain or something. And she talked about actually building these centers where this stuff would take place. At least then there was something to compare and contrast with, effectiveness. In here, she didn't say anything. It was 16 minutes of nothing. Thank you, Picala Driving 8-Man. They are using the Sergeant Bilko method. Sergeant Bilko? Oh my God, Phil Silvers? Pincalo, you are reaching way into the past. I thought bringing up George Kirby the other day by Nancy Pelosi was something, but Sergeant Bilko? Wow. All right, guys. After all of that, what's a good word? Blatherskite. Let's go back to the bingo card. Plays victim, we circled. Okay, so here's what I have circled. I'll display. Well, actually, you know what? I'll display that now. Let me get that going. If you guys have suggestions for things I should circle or comments elsewise about the talk, please put them into the chat now while I get the card ready to display. I am disappointed. I mean, if nothing else, I was hoping for at least some kind of wacky, new age, hippie-ish, I don't know, some kind of tangible alternative to prisons, like restorative justice centers. If she described something similar to restorative justice centers, then at least that'd be something. You know, we could judge the effectiveness of that, or how does that balance out against really serious crimes or something. It'd be something more tangible than not saying anything at all. But unfortunately, we got nothing at all, which is really embarrassing for her. All right, so here's what I've got. I've got circled plays victim, systemic, free space, leaves out vital context, benevolent condescension, word salad, and gratuitous pausing for effect. Feminism, no. School to prison pipeline, she didn't say it specifically. And I know it's not going to show up on the screen because I can't interact with the screen, but I am, after the fact, going to circle that one because that's effectively what she was getting at. You know, how it's really the youth leading in to the prison, and school's in there somewhere. So I'm going to circle that one. Childhood or family anecdote, she never brought one up. Microaggression, no. Takes credit for something done by others, not that I noticed. Attempt to coin a new buzzword, no. Equity, no. Rape culture, no. Toxic, no. Anecdote that probably never happened. She never actually mentioned an anecdote, which is really surprising for a TEDx. Speaker should not be in the current occupation or position. Well, she's the director of an organization that is apparently trying to eliminate prisons, but she could not offer up an alternative to what a prison is, so I'm circling that one. Marginalization, no. White supremacy, privilege, no. Make something about race, sex, etc. for no reason. I mean, she brought up racism in the system, but then didn't offer any actual evidence, so yeah, I'll give you that one. Wage gap, no. Patriarchy, no. A list, she never brought up a list. Cultural appropriation, no. Okay, actually, you know what? I'm gonna revise that. There we go. Actually, I can do that. Okay, so I've updated my bingo card. That's what it looks like now, guys. We don't have a bingo, from my estimation. I'm willing to take arguments to the alternative or comments that you have as I wrap this up. Scrolling up a bit, that one servant of Satania, she has yet to address the X% that her system won't work on. Right. Like I said at the beginning, no system is perfect. What does her model say about the effectiveness of her quote-unquote process versus prison? You know, if prisons result in X amount of recidivism, her process results in what amount of recidivism? Or even if it's just a speculative model, I would take that. But she didn't even do that. I don't know. BG, well, her stupidity broke scribe. Her stupidity, her lack of a conclusion, the whole 9 yards. Red Chaos Tree, I don't think she is insulting the intelligence of the people clapping. I don't know. I tend to give people more credit than maybe they deserve sometimes, or benefit of the doubt. Let's see. Straight Sith male. Imagine my cock. I mean my shock. Yeah. Okay. Thank you, Jordan Edwardson. It just destroys everything, and we'll figure it out later. Yeah. Just nuke it from orbit, and we'll sort it out after the fact. Grillin' Pirate Pete. Thanks, Scribe. Now my head hurts. Well, that's what I'm here for, to make you think. Even if it means making you think through someone else's nonsense, so you can spot it in the future, right? That's the benefit of these things, right? That's what I tell myself. Adam Mangold says, Steve Martin. Okay, look, I know Steve Martin did the cinematic Sergeant Bilko, but Phil Silvers will always be Sergeant Bilko. Sorry. Steve Martin is no Phil Silvers. Okay? Just deal with it. Zedric Jaramillo? You know, the white Yankee me wants to say Jaramillo, but I'm pretty sure it's like Yaramillo or something. What? That's it? Well, that was a nothing burger. Yeah, no kidding. I mean, I thought at least in the last 5 minutes she would give something, but nothing. It was just a list of complaints and, oh, wouldn't it be nice if stuff. Healer Own says, how about toxic non-information? No, that's a stretch too far. The word has to be said in some way, shape, or form to describe whatever the enemy thought or enemy demographic is. And she never said toxic, so I got to hold some kind of rules here. I'm willing to extrapolate on some things. You know, if she all but said that thing, like school to prison pipeline, like youth to prison, it's in there. It's implied. But toxic is kind of very specific. Raul Aguilar, there were a bunch of intellect thought a murder in for life petition for his release based on his letters. During a party for his release, the guy went to the alley and killed someone for fun. Yeah, it's not that all criminals inherently are going to lie if they act. I mean, it's difficult to say. You extend someone some trust. You see someone who's done their time or done a significant amount of time. They haven't misbehaved in prison. And of course, it depends on the crime. But were they just biding their time? Is the environment of prison just, they don't have an opportunity to commit the kinds of crimes they would otherwise on the outside, and so once released, they do it again? You can't help someone who is not willing or able to help themselves. You know? That's really all there is to it. And I am all for someone who serves their time and pays their debt to society and upon release, having as many opportunities as possible to prove themselves to be a better person. You know? I don't think having a felony conviction should inherently deny someone employment. I can understand why employers would be hesitant, and I don't fault them for being so. And if there were ways for people to get work experience and sort of alleviate the stigma of a felony conviction if they haven't done anything of note at all for years prior to the fact, or maybe like a certain amount of time with good behavior and no crimes on their record, they can petition to have past crimes expunged, that kind of thing. I'm not necessarily against that. But it comes down to the individual's choices and responsibility. It's not just, oh, well, prison's bad and it does no good, and so we need to get rid of them because they're very lousy places to be. Yeah, they're meant to be lousy places to be. They're meant to show someone what happens if you hurt other people. You don't get to live amongst other people for a while, or forever, depending. Anyway, Ginger Snap, all criminals are drug addicts who just need to get clean so they can understand the harm they've caused. Therefore, replace prisons with drug rehabilitation and counseling, a perfect society. Yeah, I mean, I take that back. None of them, 2-1 thus far, every single person I have watched on TEDx or otherwise who have proposed restorative justice as an alternative to the criminal justice system, or in the extreme, to prisons. Not a one has ever specifically, seemingly addressed, what do you do about a murderer? What do you do about a serial rapist? What do you do about that level of crime? I mean, I've had at least one that I recall who said, this doesn't necessarily apply to the most extreme of crimes. I forget which one it was, but I was at least glad that they admitted that their system or their proposal couldn't address everything. I mean, I'll take that. If someone said, for crimes of this severity and below, I propose there be an alternative program of X. If they actually set a line and to go above it, you're stuck, but anything below that has an alternative, I'd be willing to entertain that argument. But to say a world without prisons pretty much says that no matter what you've done, there's no worse fate than the guy who littered. And that doesn't make any sense to me. And I don't think it makes sense to most thinking people. That one served as a Titania. Now, call me crazy, but maybe her generous success rate is due to the fact that people that commit very serious crimes don't get to go through those programs to prove how they don't work for it. Yeah, like I said, if she or any of these other speakers had set a line and said, past this line, this system does not apply. But everything before this, like, you know, if you said level 3 misdemeanors and below, or however it's rated in whatever jurisdiction you're talking about, I'd be like, okay, I'm willing to listen to that. But do away with prisons, restorative justice as an alternative to prison? No, not unless you have the most gilded, amazing, practically divine idea as an alternative to prison for rapists and murderers. I'm not going to say that there isn't some idea out there in the ether somewhere that would intrigue me. It's possible. I don't think it's likely, but it's possible. But to this point, no one has put that forward. And until they do, restorative justice as an entire fix to our criminal justice system or as a replacement for prisons is never going to fly. Parody Bear says, you forgot about assault and robbery. I didn't forget about it, but if I don't go to the extremes when we're talking about the extreme of no prisons, then we might as well be talking about every crime, because we are talking about every crime. You know, you go to, if you say there shall be no punishment at all, period, no prisons at all, well, then I'll bring up the worst possible crime because everything below that also applies. So anyway, guys, thank you so much for joining me on this one. This was a frustrating one, as they all seem to end up being. I'm still looking for that golden ticket answer, or at least something reasonable. I haven't found it yet. I am planning on doing one tomorrow as well, if work allows me, because right after this, I have to go, not go, but I have to do work from home. And Sunday morning, I have to do work as well. And just like last week, more likely than not, after the work I have to do tomorrow morning, I will want to decompress a bit. So, that being said, be sure to subscribe to my channel, follow me on Twitter. If you like this kind of thing, there will be more. And hopefully maybe someday we'll learn something. Or at least, if nothing else, watching these things teaches us what to watch out for in bad argumentation. You know? I think the converse to learning something new or innovative from these TEDx talks is that hopefully, as I do my bit, and you guys listen, maybe just a little bit, we're all keeping our critical thinking skills nice and sharp. Because in the day and age we live in now, I think it's more valuable than ever. Everyone, thank you so much for joining me. I hope you are all safe and well. If you're not well, please get well soon. Enjoy the rest of your Saturday. Hope to see you on the next one. Thank you for your generosity. Thank you for your attendance. And thank you so much for your participation. I could not and would not do these things if it weren't for you guys. So again, everybody, I'll see you soon. Take care. Bye-bye.